I'm here to disrupt everything the diet and food industry has told you for years. What if you could stop obsessing over food and weight, understand exactly what your body really needs to thrive, all while learning how to feel empowered, confident, and in control? Hey there, I'm Carrie Lapoli, a certified nutritionist, award-winning educator, behavioral specialist, international speaker, and mom of two amazing college-age daughters. I'm here to help you disrupt everything the diet industry has told you about your health and your body. So here's the truth. Sure, what we put in our bodies matters, and it's more than just nutrition. As a nutritionist and a behavioral expert, I'm uniquely qualified to marry both the science of what our bodies need along with how to change your relationship with food, and all while realizing your value. I want to help teach you to reach your health, wellness, and yes, even weight loss goals with powerful conversations, science-backed strategies, and real talk. I'll teach you how to break free from the cycle of dieting, deprivation, and self-sabotage and start truly living. No more temporary fixes here, just sustainable wellness for you, your family, and your future that no one is talking about. You were not put on this earth to find the right diet, so it's time to stop living like you were. Join me each and every week as I share practical advice, a fresh perspective on the power of mindset, and tips that empower you to live your purpose, all while still enjoying the foods you love. And yeah, that even includes carbs. So if you want something different, you have to do something different. Consider me your something different. Welcome to the Diet Disruptors Podcast. Well, hey there, Diet Disruptors. Carrie here. And the topic we are talking about today is it's literally the reason I went into this work in the first place. It was all about my daughters. And Jeannie Baldomero is an expert in all things daughters, especially teenage daughters. And her expertise, what she coaches, who she works with, I mean, it's all around open communication with your teenage daughters. And it's so important to me because, Jeannie, when my girls were 5 and 6 years old, they started talking about calories. And it was that experience that prompted me to say, I have to do things differently with my kids than I had being done to me inadvertently, because I think it was all in the subconscious with what I was taught. And I needed to get really aware. And now with my girls being almost 18 and 20, I'm just, oh my gosh. So I've changed my family tree, but it's still a daily work in progress. But this is your expertise. And because to me, as women, raising women, if we have our own issues with our body and with food and our self-esteem and our self-worth, we're going to impart that onto our girls. So I'm so happy that you are here to be able to help us become more self-aware and just more knowledgeable about how we can be working with our girls to ensure, or to at least try to change our family tree and to set them on a better path.
Well, thank you so much, Carrie, for having me here. It's exciting to be able to speak to moms, especially in the season of raising teenage daughters, and just how important, that bond is. Whether you like it or not, we are their number one influence in their life. And when we think about open communication, as you were saying, your daughters asked about calories, and I'm sure you intentionally did not openly say, hey, this is how many calories I'm eating today.
I would have said I never talk to them about calories. Right. I've heard a lot of women, they're like, I'm not worried about my daughters. I never talk about weight, or I'm like, okay, I'm sorry, but I've been there, I've done that, and they still figured it out.
True. And that's what we mean about open communication. It's not just what you say or tell them, it's actually what you do and what you inadvertently, intentionally, or unintentionally share in your life by living your life, right? It's about, it's a responsibility we have as moms, but at the same time, I also want to, during this time, relieve some pressure about what that's going to look like in your daughter's life and your relationship with her, because the whole point is really not to make her perfect, but to have this open communication that's bridged so that, real talk, like how we see food and how you grew up and how that was very unhealthy and what you want for her is so important, right? And to be able to establish that type of line of communication between our daughters is vital, right? In any area that we cover, whether it's health, how we see food, how we take care of ourselves, or even just their future,
Yeah.
So that is why I'm so passionate about having communication as one of the foundations of a healthy relationship between moms and their teen
Well,
daughters.
and I think you bring up such a good point because once I realized that like I needed to do better, I didn't know how to because I didn't believe, right? And to your point, it was like I remember looking at myself in the mirror and like squeezing the back of my legs, like just trying to visualize what smaller legs would look like.
Yeah.
Or when I would say things like, "Oh, I shouldn't," or "I'm being really bad," or like little things that I didn't realize was seeping into their vocabulary and what they were believing. And so to just undo that is not necessarily possible because when you still believe that and you're working
Yes.
through it yourself, and
Yes.
so you're actually what you're saying is exactly what I was doing. I was almost like narrating out loud where my own struggles were for them. Like mommy is going through her own issues, or these are some of the things that mommy has thought about or struggled with. And it's funny because my girls now, and we just had spring break and we were all together and they were talking about that stuff. And it's just been real conversations. And I think that that's where we can give ourselves grace to be like, we don't have to have it figured out, but we just
Yeah.
have to be honest and open with them about this.
Yes. Yes. It
And
just,
sorry, you have a daughter who's a dancer. So
yes.
a ballet dancer, no less. And so I know just within my work how that industry can be really hard. So you almost have like a double whammy when you're raising your daughter.
Yeah, yes. And it was almost a blessing where I was called into, I call this a ministry for myself, but called into this passion of speaking to moms. I mean, she's my only daughter. I actually am a mom of three. I
Mm,
have two boys and a girl, and people always wonder, like, why are you speaking to moms with daughters and not teenagers in general? And stems from my own story about like the struggles you mentioned. Like I had my own struggles and difficulty connecting to my own mom, and I know what it's like to be that teenager in that realm of being a teenager and being raised as a teenager with all the insecurities, all the mixed messages that you're getting, and how to relate to my mom, which I so wanted from my mom. So going back to what you were saying about body image, I remember, I think I even mentioned this when you were on my podcast about staring in the mirror and like I was competing for a bodybuilding competition and my daughter, she pinched her skin saying, "Oh, my stomach's fat." And that was a trigger for me like, "Oh, I am relaying a message to my daughter that I didn't intentionally want to relay."
mhm.
And now that she's, in ballet and in dance where it's constantly in her face, I'm just so grateful that we do have those conversations of, do you struggle? How is it? I mean, how does it feel like when somebody makes a comment like that? What does that make you feel like? And be able to be honest with that and be the simple reminders of, well, that's what, society wants, but this is the truth of what you need for yourself.
Yeah.
And it's been like an ongoing progress. Like, you work
Yeah.
with women.
Today's episode is brought to you by Be Rooted In, a magnesium lotion that also has essential oils in it. And if you are like me, you are going to need it as part of your daily routine because it is that luxurious and that beneficial. Magnesium is actually a mineral that most of us need. And if we're taking a capsule, I hate to tell you, but it's probably not doing what you think it is. When I first talked to my functional nutritionist, she had told me magnesium lotion is the way to go. And I could not find any on the market that weren't greasy or that had ingredients that I felt good about actually absorbing into my skin. And then I met Natalie. I love that she is a fellow female entrepreneur, but Natalie has wrapped her mind, her heart, and her soul all around the benefits of magnesium and why we need it so much. Sleep, stress, pain, so many different functions in our body rely on us having high levels of magnesium. And magnesium lotion is such an amazing way to be able to have it. Her products, which help with sleep or pain or tranquility, because of the essential oils in it and because of the high amount of magnesium, it is an absolutely essential part of my daily routine, and I can't wait for you to try it as well. If you go to my website, carrielupoli.com, go check out my favorite products, click on the link for magnesium lotion, and I have a special code for you too to be able to get 20% off your first order. A huge difference in the way we look at things, but it's absolutely not communicated outside in our culture of the difference between the need to lose weight and the need to get healthy. And
Yes.
it's weight loss, weight loss, weight loss, weight loss. Everything, my weight loss journey, weight loss drugs, weight loss, obesity, all of it is around a number on a scale versus become the healthiest version of yourself.
Yep.
And that to me is like such a small but ginormous difference in the communication because
Yes.
you do not need a flat belly to be healthy.
No.
And while the Instagram, the TikTok, the social media kind of shows us that having that flat belly or looking a certain way is important, if we could be open with our girls for them to say, really help, like, why? Why is
Yeah.
that so important? And what do you really want out of your life? Uh, in order to get that, you need to be the healthiest version of yourself. I think speaks volumes. And
Yes.
so uh, let's get into it. You
Okay.
are the queen of open communication. And for moms that are just like, okay, I know I need to figure this out. What do we do? How do we get ourselves to a place of openly communicating with our daughters so that they can trust us and talk to us and share with us?
Right. It's funny, and I know a lot of moms that I worked with, they're baffled by the fact that there are so many changes that happen during a specific time. Like, when she was 8, she had no problem chatting, chatting, chatting. We'd sit down, and I actually would have to be like, okay, I need a break from you talking to me, you
Yes.
know? And then all of a sudden, when I ask her a question, she like either gives me a one word answer or looks at me like, why are you asking me a question?
Like you're
And they're
crazy.
baffled by the drastic change. And sometimes we forget as moms that we too have gone through the puberty stage, the adolescent changes. And I think the first thing as moms, we need to understand, okay, where are they at right now? How do we meet them where they're at right now? And that's really understanding the changes that are happening in the teen stage,
Mhm.
right? We can Google and see like, okay, what exactly is happening, right? But also understand your daughter too within this stage and how maybe some of the reactions or attitudes or responses that are happening within your daughter can filter into some of these changes that are happening within your daughter. They start to pull away from the family, and that's a natural progression because, and cover ears, but really they're ready to procreate. Right? They're
Mhm.
biologically getting geared up to procreate. This is when their menstrual cycle starts. Hormones start to go all over the place. And if you're going through perimenopause right now, you
Yep.
understand that season. And also the sense of, wanting to connect with other people in relationships outside of the family unit, trying to figure out who they are in this world and what their family has been teaching what my mom and dad has been teaching me. And now I have all these influences thanks to social media and the internet. They have even more of what
Mm.
culture tells them and shapes them to be. So they're in this stage. Can you imagine having this, like your brain just open up and your eyes can suddenly see so
Yes. You're right. My daughter, I remember, I mean, we're a faith-based family, a Christian family. The girls would go to church, and it's like they just really my oldest started pulling away. And she's still not fully there in the way that I would like her to be there, but she's on her own journey. But it was really hard when she started like making her own opinions about things. And I was like, wait, what?
yeah.
So you make a really good point. I heard a metaphor once around how it's sort of like when you take your kids to the pool and they're hanging out with you like in the deep end of the pool, and they're hanging out with you by the side, and then they want to go into swim into the deep end, and they're swimming and swimming, and then they get tired and they come back to you over on the edge. Because my daughter would be sometimes like cuddly and like I'm like, oh my gosh, I got my little girl back. And
Yep.
then like literally an hour later, she was like back to not wanting to talk to me.
Yep.
And when I heard that metaphor, I was like, oh, they're like taking their like little swim into the deep end of the pool, kind of testing the waters to feel independence in their own kind of person.
Yes, I love that metaphor because it's so easy to understand and it kind of resets the mom brain out of panic mode and
Yes.
right and guilt mode and thinking like, oh my gosh, is this how our relationship's going to be from now on? And that's like a lie I think a lot of moms believe in themselves. And so control starts to take place when
Yes.
they feel like they're losing a sense of control with the relationship with their daughter. And it backfires really when you have an independent girl or try a girl trying to flex her independence, right? And you're trying to control that, then there's a lot of tension that happens.
Hmm.
And this is where in my Talk to Your Teen Girl framework, it's where I guide moms into, hey, let's try a different perspective, a different way to approach your daughter because what worked in their childhood no longer works in their
Totally,
teenhood.
totally. Nobody
Right.
tells us that. They think you have your child until they're 18, right? But it was like it shocked me that by about 11 or 12, it was a totally different human. And
Yes.
I wasn't ready. Like I didn't know I was gonna, I always had to grieve and mourn the child that no longer was in front
Yes.
of me. But I
Yes.
will say, and I think you probably have seen this too, now that my girls are kind of like, I just now have a 20-year-old, it's like she's back in a totally different way, but she's
Yes.
back. And it's actually even better, I would say.
Yes. I would say back and in a better way,
Yeah.
a lot more mature, like, hey, I could be your friend type of
Yes.
person, you know?
Yes.
And
Totally.
that's the whole point because we have to allow that shift to happen within the adolescent phase is that if mom is always controlling like she was a child, I've also seen, good girl until 18, I'm being obedient. And then once 18 hits, it's like a completely different person.
Yes.
No engagement, no relationship, and off the chart, off the chart, like total opposite. And that is one of the things that I've seen moms that I've helped been shocked over as well. And it's because there was a lack of bridging between, the adulthood and the child, which is really an indication biologically through our behavior too that hey, it's time to bridge now because I see the signs of the change happening within my child.
Yeah, I went through some parenting courses because I needed to kind of figure some stuff out as I was realizing all of this with regards to my own mindset about my body and food and how I was going to impact them. And I heard some really amazing advice where once they're like that 16 to 18, well, how is it proposed to me? You can tell me if I'm right or not. I think it was like 12 to 15, you are their model versus like their teacher or even their coach. Like they're watching you, but they're not necessarily engaging with you as much as you might want them to. So what
Yeah.
you do matters because they're watching. But then once
Yes.
they're like 16, it becomes like you can become a little bit more of their coach because
Hmm.
they're a little bit more open. And then
Yeah.
once they're past that like teenage age, that you become more of their mentor. But I think
Yes.
that model time is really an important one as we're talking about our own behaviors and relationships with food in our body, that we might not be saying certain things, but what we're doing, they're watching.
Yes, and that's incredibly true. And I totally agree about the whole model, coach, mentor role that we have as moms. And if we can remember that, then I think the the situations or interactions that you're having with your daughter becomes less personal. You know,
Oh,
it
yeah.
doesn't cut as deep if you understand that these are phases and natural phases
Yeah.
that happen within a relationship. And it's healthy to be able to help guide your daughter through that time. And also to keep at the top of your mind, mama, is this is a time for you to build trust with your daughter. You're probably thinking like, well, I never thought I lost trust with
Right.
my daughter. But when we think about independence, trying to break free, trying to discover ourselves, if we're constantly trying to control the direction, um, even if it's panic mode or you're intentionally thinking like, oh, she's starting to wear off, wave off from what I want her to do, what I want her to do,
Yeah.
right? And I need to like bring her back. It's how we do it and also how often we do it. I
Mm.
mean, do we have to engage in every battle? No. Can we discern which ones matter? Yes. And
Mm.
we do that in Talk to Your Teen Girl framework is really like, what are your non-negotiable values that you're unwilling for her to waver,
Mm.
especially early on, like 12, 13, 14, when they're super impressionable and
Mhm.
nobody else matters but boys and girls, right? Boys and their friendships. And being able to know your role and your perspective with the big picture in mind really does help. And one way to build trust is really how you interact and constantly create that open communication with your daughter. And also know when your daughter is willing, right, to swim back to you and know those opportunities to communicate with her. And when she's out in the deep end, to also know maybe this is not a good time to, have conversation with her and know that she's off swimming trying to figure out who she is.
I love that. I think that is actually one of the best skills that we could develop as a mom because like it's so funny because when I was driving in the car, sometimes they would just start talking. Like if it was just me and them or whatever it was, and I was like, okay. And if they start talking, then I'm like, I like it was like a dance and they were the
Yeah.
lead and I would take their lead. But then there was other times, and still today with my 18-year-old, I see this a lot. Like when she's shut down, I know that there's nothing like I'm just gonna wait for her.
Yeah.
And so, but I wish like I had known that when they were a little younger, because I think I tried to force conversations more than I should have, and then I would get frustrated.
Yeah, and that's okay. It's hindsight, what we learn from our experiences. But one thing I also do is remind moms, like, hey, let's not bring that into what you can do now,
Okay. Yeah.
and that's okay too. We kind of learn from our past, but don't necessarily bring those type of feelings or regrets into our relationship that we're trying to build moving forward and in
Yeah,
the
'cause I could
present.
see that guilt. It's the same thing
Yeah.
I talk about, like with our own behaviors around our body image. And
Yes.
like, we
Yep.
can't do anything about the past. We can only control what we're doing right now, right?
Right.
We can't control other people and all of that. And I love that because in all reality, I could see, and I saw this with my friends, and it was easier for me to see it, right? Because you can't see the label from
Yeah.
inside the jar. So I could see it with them. Maybe I couldn't see it as much for me. But that
Yeah.
guilt of not doing it in the way that you felt like it was the right way to do it, then sometimes makes you overcompensate after to do things and play in or give them, things that they're asking for because of guilt. And I feel like
Yes.
that's such a mistake.
Yes, and that's also unhealthy because it becomes manipulative. It becomes a
Ah,
manipulative
yes.
tool.
Yeah.
And it's like this pendulum that keeps on swinging back and forth. And it's like, well, no, we have to figure a way in the middle, right? And in each relationship, even with each individual daughter, is different, right? And moms know their daughter best because you raise them, you know their tendencies, even if they are a little bit different in adolescence, but you also know how they respond, right? And what their personality type is and what works for one daughter may not work for another, and that is still okay. It's nothing that you're doing wrong. It's just how do I use this time to be able to reach my daughter? What is
Yeah.
working,
I
right?
love
And part of open communication is really having a sense of curiosity, right? This is
that.
my time to get curious with my daughter. And that also means I can't talk that much. I have to be more observing and not make assumptions. So these are the times where I can be like, let me think about what she said to me and how she said it, and not make an assumption that it's towards me, but actually get curious and wonder, did she have a bad day? And I just happen to be the first in line.
That is so interesting. It's so funny that you say that because I talked to my team about that when we talk to women about the work that we do. And
Mhm.
if a woman says something like, do you have, personalized coaching? And my team will be like, yes, and it's so amazing because da 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 da. And I've been working with them to be like, ask them why they want to know that. Like get curious because for some people they may have actually had a really bad experience with a personal coach and we're just assuming that they're excited about that.
Yeah.
And so you're just making me realize I got to do this more with my girls. Like I say things not to just impart my own interpretation of it, but to ask questions.
Yep.
And it takes the pressure off of me to like feel like I have to know exactly what to say.
Exactly. And that's the whole point is this takes pressure off you to know exactly what to say because half the time, say like it's an issue at
Mhm.
school
Mhm.
and sometimes moms just moms always want to fix things.
Yes.
We want the feelings to go away, we want everyone to feel happy and we want to fix
Yes.
it, right? We just want the solution. But we also rob them of one being able to sit in their feelings, which is healthy because I grew up not sitting in my feelings. It was like, okay, you can't cry, stop crying,
Yeah.
because it made my mom uncomfortable and not me uncomfortable. So it's getting comfortable with being uncomfortable, allowing them to sit in their feelings, to really take those into words and
Mhm.
help guide them to express themselves into words. And I think this is a great skill that they need to learn as a woman,
Mhm.
it as an adult to be able to communicate verbally because we have a tendency to keep things in our mind and then expect our husbands just to know.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I do that all the time. Yes. Yes.
I know. So do I.
Yes.
Which is, I mean, a lot of the things I teach is because it literally made me dig into what I'm doing myself. And also, just a way for us to when we're getting curious, it's for her to be able to express what she's really thinking. As she's talking, she's processing. And most times she's solving her own problem already. All we need to do is
Yes.
ask the simple question, what do you think should happen next?
Yes.
Or how did you feel about that? And what would you have done? I mean,
I love that
right?
so much.
I have no skin in this. There's nothing for me to be like, take responsibility
Right.
over, but I'm encouraging her to be like her own problem solver, right? But being the person that's just guiding her thoughts.
Yeah, because I think sometimes we inadvertently want them to make the decisions, say maybe that we didn't make the best decisions when we were younger. And with sometimes it's like, learn from me, don't make the same mistakes I did. But at the same time, they almost have to make their own choices and mistakes. Okay, so let's get this down because what you're making me think about now is the woman that I often talk to that tells me, like a lot of times if we talk to women in their 50s and 60s, the average number of years that they have been dieting or obsessing about their food and their bodies is 30 to 40 years. That means all the times that we're raising kids.
Yes.
And
Wow.
so whether you are a mom that's raising teenage girls or a grandmother that has their grandchildren that are going to be coming up as teenagers, how if we haven't fully reconciled the
Mhm.
relationship with our own body and know that it's problematic. I mean, a lot of women are like, I know I have a a problematic relationship with food in my body. How do we raise girls to not have those same issues?
Right. It's kind of like I know what my issues are, and I just don't want to pass that down to you.
Yeah.
And it's the whole as I'm working through it, the first thing, mamas and grandmothers is you have to give yourself more kudos than you give yourself because number one, you're already doing something about it. One, you recognize that it's an issue, and two, you're doing something about it, right? And that is your back pocket tool to become authentic and genuine with your teenage daughters or granddaughters. One thing I know that teenagers can sniff out is whether or not you're being authentic and genuine. And
So
they can see that, right? You say one thing but do another. They're just like, yeah, what you're telling me is total, what you call it, and I'm not going to follow it.
yes.
You know, and it's okay to be real with your teenagers because they like real, especially Gen Zers. They're all about like, just tell me, don't give me the rah cheerleading thing.
Yeah.
I just want to know the real stuff and what you're going through and how that's going to impact me. And being authentic with your daughters and really walking her through like, hey, this is what I'm working on. I recognize that. And this is why I am going through this. I'm struggling with all the years of what I always thought how to take care of my body was weight loss, or how I couldn't eat that and how it made me feel, but yet I wasn't happy, you know?
Mhm.
And I don't want that for you. This is why.
Yes.
Share your story, share your experiences. I do that honestly with my daughter, which is why she has a healthier view of food, even being a ballet dancer.
That is
Because I,
so, like, my girls know my story. That is so important. Like, and all of the women that I work with have a story, right?
yes,
So just
yes,
sharing the story is,
yes.
ah, Jeannie,
The
that,
true reason why you don't want it for them is exactly what you need to share, you know?
yeah.
And being able to do that, Brene Brown, oh my gosh, I love her. I read all her
Yes.
books, but she talks about vulnerability and how
Yes.
vulnerability is opposite of shame, right? Right now, you might be sitting in shame because you're realizing, oh my gosh, I spent all these years of my life thinking in an unhealthy way. And it's a struggle for me to undo all of this. But that's shame that's keeping you from sharing it with your teenage daughter, thinking that if I tell her this, she's going to do the same thing. But honestly, if you don't tell her this, she's going to do the same thing.
Yes.
You
Oh
know?
my gosh. That is right there. That is the phrase, that is the philosophy, that is the mindset we have to have. They have to
Right.
know our story. And a lot of times when we talk to women, they'll say that this is the first time they've ever said any of this stuff out loud to
Hmm.
their, they've never told their spouse, they certainly haven't told their kids.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we have this belief because we haven't shared it that everything's fine. Like I never dealt with it with my girls because I never brought it up.
Yeah.
I always say the loudest voice wins. And I
I,
don't mean loud by like quantity, especially with the teenage girls, but
yeah.
like the impact of our voice matters. And I love how you were talking about how like moms were such an influencer to our family. I keep wanting to get t-shirts made that say hashtag momfluencer because
Yes.
that is us. We have such this incredible responsibility. And I love that we don't have to have it all figured out in order to impact them in a
Yeah.
way that's positive. You're right. I never heard it from my mom explicitly in terms of her struggles. I just look back on it now and I say, wow, now I see where I got it from, but not
Yes.
having the conversation. But to your point, I don't know that she was really aware.
Right. Right. Or willing to acknowledge
Right.
because it was just the way it was. You know, you only know what you only know, right?
So it's
And
really not that hard if you just
I
are
know.
authentic to yourself.
Right. Right. It's not, but at the same time, when you come to this, right, you come to this reality that I've always believed something that wasn't true. Sometimes it's harder to take the truth than it is to just continue with the lie,
Sure. Well,
right?
it's like an onion peeling thing. It just starts to peel away other things then that.
Right. It's uncomfortable. It's
Mhm.
uncomfortable. And this is, I think, if anything, this message of you're going to be uncomfortable and it's okay to be uncomfortable, but with the uncomfortability comes this huge, huge reward of trust
Yeah.
that's built between relationships when you are just, ready and willing to just share some of the authentic things that come up organically, within, either dealing with your health and how you see what weight loss is and dieting and all that, or even other areas in your life even finances, like how I handle my finances, just
Yes.
things. It's not telling your daughter you shouldn't do that because of your own experience. It's more sharing your story because you cannot undo your story. Your story is your story
Mhm.
and it's the truth,
Yeah.
right? But to learn from the story, and it comes with some leverage of I've gone through this and this is what I've experienced, and you can take what I've shared with you and apply it in your own life. This
And
is
I've learned that they may not ask questions at the moment, but eventually, if they start asking questions, and I hear this with my clients all the time, they'll be like, my daughter started asking me about protein and why that was so important, or wanted me to share X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, see, just the little bits of either conversation or modeling is starting to allow our kids and girls, especially, to then start asking the questions when they're ready.
exactly. And are you hearing that they're asking questions or getting curious? And are you ready to just be open about talking about it?
Yeah. Oh, so good. So, what I mean, this is your superpower, and you actually teach moms how to do this in a
Mhm.
way that's got a really specific framework.
Yes.
So, if you had to like kind of just outline, what does that framework look like? How do you teach moms this?
Well, it's called Talk to Your Teen Girl Framework. I make it super simple. That's the whole purpose is you're going to learn how to talk to your girl where she's going to come back to you and talk to you even if she's scared. Basically, it's the big stuff that really matter. We're teaching you to have an environment, a culture within your relationship where she's able to come to you, even if she's scared, but she's willing to come to you because there's trust that's been built. And it is a step-by-step process, right? Like any relationship, it's a journey. This could even be done over and over and over again. It's the same process. Break down what happens, first understanding what happens to your teenager. So it's a foundation of let me first understand what she's going through right now, all the thoughts, what she's
Because even though we've
capable.
done it, like it's hard for us to figure to recognize that. I
No,
love
I exactly. I even had a mom that I interviewed. She just finished and she goes, I forget what it was like to be a teenager and I have one of the exercises in there where it's let's bring it back to your story.
Mm,
And they go back to a pivotal point in their teenage life and list like their stories about what it was like to be a teenager, how they felt, what they thought, who was in their life. Did they have anybody to lean on?
that's
And it
amazing.
really was a perspective shift to prepare them to start creating open communication. And the points that we make in there is we want her to feel heard, we want her to feel seen, and
Mm,
we want her to feel understood, and that she knows that we know that,
love
right?
that.
And
Yes.
providing those environments. We also have some concrete things, tactical things like PDFs of having those hard conversations because I think a lot of things is like, okay, we have this open communication, but there are some hard things that we need to talk about with our daughters, but it's always seems to be like, I don't want to talk about it. I don't
Yeah.
want to talk about it.
Yeah.
Right. And how do we navigate through that? So we also have a module in there where it's, okay, now let's apply all of these skills that we've taught you in as a role as a coach, right? We use the acronym coach in there to help them remember some of the aspects of open creating these open communication. And we have it in the last module where they apply it to hard conversations. We have PDFs for conflict resolution, for how you're feeling in this moment before you go off and talk to them, right?
Hmm.
Goal setting, helping your daughter if she has a problem with getting her homework done. How can we help her set her own goals? And this is how we can help her accomplish it and hold her accountable. So things like that that are concrete,
Mm.
because sometimes relationship is just it's like an air thing, a
Yeah.
mindset.
Yeah.
But we also need to be able to have concrete things to apply and hold on to so that there can be those hard conversations as well, but respecting each other's time and timing.
This is stuff that we need to know. Like when we have our kids, we have all the books and we do like, the pre-birthing classes and whatever it is. But like this is the stuff that I think every mom of girls should have to like take some time to really figure out. And it's so powerful and important. You're doing such important work. I love that you called it like a ministry because you just feel like it's
Mhm.
your calling. And I feel the same way about the work that I do. And it's just women supporting other women to raise the next generation of women to be the healthiest version of themselves. And
Yes.
it's no wonder we don't know what to do because our parents didn't know what to do. And now we have the tools and the resources and people like you to be able to get us on that right track.
Right.
Um, just what you've shared so far has just been so enlightening to me, even as a mom, and I know it will be to so many other moms. But I love that you have this course that people can do, they can learn from, they can kind of tap into and reflect on in a way that I just think is really intentional so
Hmm.
that we're not just flying by the seat of our pants. So
Right.
teach us how people can get in touch with you, can learn more about your course and about what you do.
Also, well, you can go to talktoyourteengirl.com and that gives you all the information on the framework. It breaks it down so you understand what you're getting out of it and what the results will be. Um, And if you want to stay connected, I have Raising Her Confidently podcast where I speak to you about creating open communication. Right now, we have a series going on. It's called Build Trust with Your Teenage Daughter. So
Oh,
it's a 5 episode series on how to build trust with your teenage daughter. And for the framework itself, talktoyourteengirl.com, where you can see the specifics of the course for sure.
I love that. I love that. And I got the honor of being a guest on your podcast, which is really truly such a wealth of knowledge and inspiration for moms. So make sure you subscribe to that podcast. And if you are ready to actually take this learning and make it concrete and make it something like, to me, this is the epitome of what we should be focusing on as moms, right? Like, we do everything for our kids, but being able to educate ourselves on how to be the best support for these
Yes.
for our girls, to me,
Yep.
is the best investment we can make. So thank you for being here. I'm so excited. You and I have talked about ways that we can continue to work together because our work is so synergistic. And
Yes.
make sure you check out Jeannie, check out her podcast, go grab her course, and just raise her confidently because you have everything it takes. I love it. Thank you, Jeannie.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Carrie.